Somehow, this has simultaneously been one of the most boring starts to NBA free agency, but also one of the most chaotic for me here in Sacramento. I'm trying to make sense of the rumors that I'm hearing, the reports that are out there. Dennis Schroder connected to the Kings. We've known that for a while. Now, Russell Westbrook making his way into the mix, a potential sign and trade. I'll share with you what I can and try and make sense of it all right here on Locked On Kings.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily Sacramento Kings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, it is that time for another episode of Locked On Kings.
Hello and welcome into Locked On Kings, your podcast hub for Sacramento Kings coverage all offseason long. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. My name is Matt George. I have the privilege of being your host here. I'm a Sacramento sports anchor and reporter for ABC 10 News. And I'm sure you guys at some point or another have seen that GIF or that meme online. I think it's a scene from the show It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. And it's the guy that has like that wall of papers and he's got strings of yarn connecting different things together. Like he's going crazy with conspiracy theories and trying to put all these pieces together to a point where he looks insane. That's kind of where I'm at right now. I don't have a wall of papers behind me necessarily, but I've been working the phones all day long. I've heard rumors going back to this morning that I think have a lot of validity to them. And look, I'm going to do my best to articulate what I think is going on, what I think Scott Perry and the Sacramento Kings are doing, or what their plan or goal is right now, based off of what I am able to share with you. Some stuff I can't share because it comes from sources, whether it's different people, conflicting reports, whatever the case may be, that are sharing it with me to work with me to try and make sense of what is going on. So I will share with you as much as I possibly can as we try and figure out together, and I help talk through what I think is happening. And let me preface this by saying, it makes my job harder, but the fact that we don't know what Scott Perry is doing, that we can't pinpoint what Scott's plan is or like what he wants to do, what his number one priority is, it's a good thing. Understand, from an organizational standpoint, from a Sacramento Kings fan standpoint, it is good that we don't know what our GM is doing, that our GM is not predictable. I will tell you what I have learned about Perry through this process to this point, and I am just starting to get to know the man, is that he is not afraid to be aggressive and be creative and explore options. Now, he's ultimately going to be judged on what he is able to get done. Same way Monte McNair was judged on, for the most part, what he was not able to get done. Because we've heard over the past couple of years how many trade deadlines where we're like, Monty's working on this, he had a possibility with that, but ultimately nothing got across the finish line. Same rules apply for Scott. But I promise you, I'm telling you, and trust me on this, Scott is looking at options and opportunities that you and I didn't even think of and wouldn't even fathom until now. They're starting to come out and we're starting to realize some things. And he still might pull a fast one on everybody and make a move that none of us saw coming. Also, on today's podcast, the next segment, we'll talk about the Jake LaRavia thing too. Jake LaRavia going to the Los Angeles Lakers. I can tell you with full confidence, this was a surprise to everybody in Sacramento, including the organization. They did not expect to lose Jake LaRavia. I'll talk about that again later on in the show. But I want to talk about this Dennis Schroder stuff, Russell Westbrook's name being involved, how the Kings could potentially get both of them and are looking to potentially get both of them. Now, this was reported a day or so ago that the Kings might feel like they could get both of them or could also target another veteran guard in addition to Dennis Schroder. The Dennis Schroder stuff has been talked about here on this Locked On Kings podcast, has been public information for the better part of a week. I would be floored, stunned, whatever word you want to use, if Dennis Schroder is not a Sacramento King, which is why the report, and by the way, I still have Twitter open in front of me because free agency is still going on. At any point, something could break, something could change. And if it does, we'll react to it together here on the Locked On Kings podcast, at least when I'm recording this podcast. But Fred Katz from The Athletic, who is a very, very well established NBA reporter, right? Like, this is not some random person. This is not like if I were to put something out there to somebody else in a different market, right? Fred Katz, extremely well connected in the NBA. He put out there that Dennis Schroder will agree to sign with the Sacramento Kings. I believe that 100%. That report, I think, is true. But the fact that it has not been confirmed by anybody locally here in Sacramento, and believe me, we've been trying, and that we haven't seen anything from Shams or Chris Haynes or anybody else to finalize what does the dollar figure look like, it means there's more to it. I got wind this morning that a potential sign and trade was on the table. Again, what I can share, what I believe is happening right now, is that a Dennis Schroder agreement is in place. The holdup, I believe, is that there are still conversations happening between the Sacramento Kings and I believe the Detroit Pistons, who were the former team of Dennis Schroder. There are conversations happening where the Kings could send a piece, and that piece is rumored to be Malik Monk. Send a piece to Detroit in the sign and trade so that the Pistons don't just lose Schroder for nothing. The Kings would then open up a little bit of cap space. In the case of if it is Malik Monk and Schroder is expected to sign for like the rough dollar figure anywhere between $10 to $14 million. We're talking about $5-6 something million difference between the two contracts, assuming Detroit can take that money on. That then opens up the money for the Kings then to add in the second part of these rumors, which is go out and target Russell Westbrook. Now, we can debate and we can talk about, and feel free to let it fly in the comment section below or send me an email or reach me on Twitter and talk to me about, Matt, why the heck would the Sacramento Kings want both Russell Westbrook and Dennis Schroder? I think it's a fair question. I think there's fair criticisms to it. What I put out on social media, and I firmly believe, is that we need to stop looking at what Scott Perry is doing right now through the lens of the Sacramento Kings trying to win basketball games next season and primarily focus on building a culture here in Sacramento. Why would the Sacramento Kings want Russell Westbrook? Because Russ probably fits the culture that Doug Christie and Scott Perry are trying to establish, right? That physical, tough-nosed, aggressive, hardworking, athletic. I know Russ is a little less athletic now than he was back in his heyday when he was a youngin' in Oklahoma City. But you get my point. The fire that Russell Westbrook plays with. Sure, he's a vet towards the end of his career. Maybe he's only here for a season or two, but you can use that season or two of Russell Westbrook being here to help establish that culture. Apply the same thing to Dennis Schroder. I've shared with you, I think Dennis Schroder makes a lot of sense for the Kings as kind of a stopgap point guard to buy Scott Perry some time before he can really make some moves like trading Zach LaVine's contract in a year, if he's able to do so, or getting 1 year closer to the end of Domantas Sabonis' major deal if he wants to move on from that. Right? This is all hypothetical, but this is what makes sense to me. I believe that Scott Perry is prioritizing finding guys to establish a culture here in Sacramento, which makes sense as to why he would lean so veteran heavy. Because he wants guys who have been there, who have done that, who are who they are. Nobody can question who Russell Westbrook is. or who DeMar DeRozan is. You know who those guys are. So they can establish that culture, help some of the younger guys, whether it's Keegan, who's kind of transitioning out of the younger guys phase, or the new rookies that the Kings are bringing in, Devin Carter, if he's still here, help those guys get that culture established, build a foundation so that whatever moves Scott makes in the future, whatever draft picks he has in the future, they are coming into a environment where the expectations are already established. It's like Heat culture. Everybody who comes and plays for the Miami Heat knows and learns what Heat culture is. And if you don't fit, you're out. The Kings are trying to build their Kings culture here in Sacramento. And I think Scott Perry feels that some of these veterans can help accomplish that, even if it doesn't make them the most appealing product on the basketball court for next season. Again, I'm not saying it's a foolproof plan or that's the right thing to do. But I believe that's what Scott Perry's plan is. So again, I have no idea for certain if a sign and trade is going to happen. But this is what I believe the holdup is. I think Perry, instead of just signing Dennis Schroder outright, which I think is plan B. If I think no matter what, Dennis Schroder is going to be signed in Sacramento. He's going to be a King. I believe that wholeheartedly. Instead of just doing that on day one, right away, and then saying, that's pretty much it for our free agency period. He's trying to be creative. He obviously feels time is on his side enough to explore this. And he's seeing what's potentially out there. And I'll say this too. I've hinted at this a lot. If the Kings aren't able to move Malik Monk or Devin Carter, or maybe even Jonas Valanciunas in any of these potential deals, it means their market is not very good. And if Scott Perry is struggling to move any of these guys, that means we're looking at the Kings essentially running it back with the addition of a couple new rookies, new two-way guys, and Dennis Schroder. I don't think anybody wants that here in Sacramento. Again, I don't know. I truly do not know if this is going to happen. But it makes perfect sense to me as to why. I got wind of this morning. I heard about the potential of this happening this morning, well before free agency began. And while I haven't gotten anything definitive to say it is happening, when you apply that potential to the Cats report, but no confirmation on the Kings end, no confirmation from any other major reporter, it makes sense that maybe there's a little more to it. Doesn't mean that anything is going to happen, but I think the Kings are trying. And all we can do is sit back, try to relax, and see if a deal gets done, if Scott Perry can get it across the finish line. And who knows, maybe that's tonight, maybe that's tomorrow. Whenever it happens, we'll pop right back on Locked On Kings, and we'll talk about it. Like I said at the top of the show, today's episode of Locked On Kings is brought to you by FanDuel. Summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game more exciting this summer. You're already following the action, so why not make it a little more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. FanDuel is the best way to track your favorite matchups, and the app keeps it fresh. They have new daily promotions, fun ways to bet, so it never gets stale, it never gets bored. And look, it helps kill the time before basketball season starts back up again. It's easy to use, the payouts are fast when you win, and makes regular season games feel like must-watch events. Whether you're placing a same-game parlay or watching a bet ride into the ninth inning of a close game, FanDuel makes it feel like you are part, not just on top of, but part of the action. If you're new to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. So place that $5 on the easiest bet you can find. Place it on the Colorado Rockies to lose. Open the FanDuel app today, get that money, get those bonus bets, and visit FanDuel.com to get started. So just before free agency began, I put out, update from Shams. Let's see. Nope. Nothing of specifics. Nothing of the Kings. So we can move on. Right before free agency began, I put out the following. Where is it? There it is. All signs point to the Sacramento Kings really liking Jake LaRavia. They do not intend on losing him. Well, about an hour, let's say, into free agency, Shams put out there that free agent for Jake LaRavia has agreed to a 2-year, $12 million deal with the Los Angeles Lakers. And I believe the deal is fully guaranteed. Now, after Chris Haynes pump faked us and put out that he was returning to Sacramento only to fix the tweet and put that he was going to Los Angeles, I've gotten some feedback and gotten some people on Twitter go, "Oh, Matt was wrong. Leave it to the big reporters, kid." I feel it, but let me understand this, or let me make this clear. I'm not wrong. I have it from someone that I trust very, very specifically. The Kings did not see this coming. The Kings did not want to lose Jake LaRavia. And this is important to talk about because some people either don't understand this or have forgotten this. The Sacramento Kings were hamstrung, limited on how much money they could give Jake LaRavia, not because of cap space or lack thereof, but because of the decision that the Memphis Grizzlies made before the Kings even traded for Jake LaRavia. The Memphis Grizzlies did not exercise the final option, the team option on Jake LaRavia's rookie scale deal. Therefore, when the Kings traded for Jake LaRavia, they acquired the contract that the Grizzlies decided on. So the Kings, therefore, could only offer Jake LaRavia, I believe, $5.2 million next year with a slight raise the following year. We're talking $10.5 million over a 2-year deal. That was what the Kings could offer Jake. The Lakers gave him 2 years, $12 million. The Lakers gave him $1.5 million more, roughly, than what the Sacramento Kings could over a 2-year deal. Plus, we know Jake LaRavia has a very good friend in Austin Reeves in Los Angeles, and he gets to play with LeBron James. The Kings did not do anything wrong. Jake LaRavia did not do anything wrong. The Kings did not lose LaRavia because they didn't want him or they didn't try to keep him. Jake LaRavia took the money that he could not get elsewhere. And the Lakers, after losing Dorian Finney-Smith to the Rockets, I believe, the Lakers made LaRavia a top priority and made sure they put money on the table that was more than the Kings could offer. So Jake was forced to choose money and friendship and playing with LeBron, or staying in Sacramento, where he really enjoyed. He loved how the fans embraced him, and he had a great relationship with Doug Christie. The Lakers did what any team could have done if they wanted Jake. They outbid Sacramento. Every team in the league knew how much Sacramento could offer. It sucks. It's a bummer. But the Kings knew that risk when they traded for him. Again, that was not Scott Perry that traded for him. That was Monty McNair and the old regime. And also, if you're worried about, oh man, the Kings traded for Jake LaRavia, had him for a third of the season and he left, you just wasted assets. The Kings traded essentially a 2028 second round pick to the Memphis Grizzlies. It was part of a 3-team deal too that sent Alex Len and Colby Jones to the Washington Wizards. The Kings didn't trade really anything of significance for Jake LaRavia. So losing him is not like, oh God, that stings. It's a bummer for sure. But if we're being honest, it's not much more than a bummer. I like Jake LaRavia a lot. I know the Kings like Jake LaRavia a lot. Again, they were surprised. This was a curveball. They thought that Jake LaRavia was going to be was going to remain in Sacramento. They thought they were going to be able to work it out. The Lakers swooped in and offered money that the Kings legally could not offer. The Kings never intended to lose Jake LaRavia, like my report said. Never intended to. But they did, because another team took advantage of a decision that the Kings didn't make, that the Memphis Grizzlies made. And through the rules of the CBA, the Kings had to acquire or traded to acquire that decision from Memphis. And who knows, maybe that made Jake LaRavia's price a little bit less because the Kings knew about that contract. Maybe it didn't. I have no idea. Again, the regime that made that deal is gone now. It's a bummer. but it's not the end of the world. It's really not. I wish Jake LaRavia was still a King. What this means for like the forward position in Sacramento. I mean, we've always had questions about the forward position in Sacramento. This just adds a little more to it. We'll see. But Jake LaRavia going to the Los Angeles Lakers, it's a bummer. Hopefully the Kings can find some sort of replacement because I know he was a fan favorite. He played with, the hustle that he played with was awesome. And I wish him the best because in the very limited time that I got to know him, fantastic guy. I hate that he's a Laker, but I wish him the best of luck. So, still nothing has happened. Don't know if the sign and trade thing is going to go down or if, I don't know, or if the Kings are just going to sign Dennis Schroder outright. It might have to wait till tomorrow. Who knows? But at least what I'm able to share with you, I've put out there. At least you have an idea. We'll see if it plays out. We'll see if Detroit is game or not, or if the Kings still want to even pursue this option or just get LaRavia handled, or if Russell Westbrook decides, F it, I'm going to play somewhere else. We'll see. We'll see how it all plays out. We'll enjoy it together. Of course, I'll cover whatever happens, excuse me, here on Locked On Kings. Also, I had an interview earlier today with the head coach of the Stanford Cardinal and, of course, the former head coach of Maxime Reynaud, who's one of the Kings rookies. He was the second round pick, the 42nd overall pick. So I will have that for you coming up on a Locked On Kings podcast later on this week. We'll get to learn a little bit more about Maxime Reynaud. We're actually going to get to meet Maxime Reynaud a little bit later this week, as on Thursday, the Kings will hold their press conference to introduce the two rookies. Of course, Nick Clifford will be there, and we will be able to talk to both Scott Perry and head coach Doug Christie. So we're very much looking forward to that. So I'll have that for you here on Locked On Kings. Again, whatever happens, I got it covered for you here on Locked On Kings all off season long. I appreciate you riding this wave with me. Anything you want to weigh in, you want to share your thoughts on the potential of Russell Westbrook and Dennis Schroder here. If you don't like it at all and you want to vent about that, if you're upset about the Kings losing Jake LaRavia, hey, let's talk about it. It's all fair game. Reach out to me, hit me up at MattGeorgeSack on Twitter. Email me, mattgeorgesports@gmail.com. Leave your thoughts in the YouTube comment section down below. Maybe there will be fireworks. Maybe it'll just be boring. But I promise you, I'm not making stuff up. And I'm hoping that no matter what happens, the Kings and Scott Perry get it right. Even if short term, it's not the most exciting and doesn't make the most sense. Appreciate your support as always. Can't wait to have you join me on the next episode of Locked On Kings. Until then, my name is Matt George. You've been listening to the Locked On Kings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.